I'm so grateful to be with you today. My name is Christina Clayton. I'm one of the co-directors with the Northwest Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. Welcome to today's webinar, When Race and Racism is the Elephant in the Room, How to Bring Up Race in Therapeutic Conversations Without Coming Undone with Sharonda Jamerson. We want to start with our land acknowledgement. Because we are based in Seattle, the University of Washington acknowledges the peoples and homelands that we are sitting on unceded land and traditional territories of Indigenous peoples who have been here since time immemorial. We don't do this because it's a checkbox and it's something people should do. We really want to honor and work for justice in these communities. And so if you want to know more about the lands on which you live or work, we'll put a link into the chat. So now we will introduce our MHTTC network. If you haven't been with us before, we're a nationwide network that is supported by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA. Our network includes 10 regional centers, a National American Indian Alaska Native Center, a National Hispanic and Latino Center, and a network coordinating office. And there are also networks just like this for addiction that have been around for about 25, 30 years, and prevention, which is about the same age as we are, coming in our 5th year. The MHTTC network supports resource development, dissemination, training, and technical assistance, and workforce development. And our Northwest MHTTC covers HHS Region 10, which includes Alaska, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. But as I'm guessing from all the people here, you're not just from those 4 states, because we can all do this virtually. So that's lovely. A little bit more about us. We are housed at the University of Washington in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences. And our area of focus for the network is evidence-based practices for serious mental health issues such as psychosis. However, we provide training on a variety of topics because all of these things are important: integrated care, suicide prevention, diversity and equity, school mental health, peer support, and trauma-informed approaches, and others. We do this through providing live and recorded webinars, virtual learning communities. We have online self-paced courses. We do newsletters and resources, and we have a podcast. So our goal is to really just offer free training, technical assistance, and support you in doing your jobs every day. So if you aren't getting our newsletter about announcements, please feel free to sign up. We'll get you that link in a bit. Within our network, we all agreed, because our goal is to always strive to use affirming, respectful, and recovery-oriented language in all the work we're involved in. This is an ever-changing landscape. We want to just be mindful of all the different perspectives that may come up in these events. We kindly ask everyone to communicate, using language that's respectful, non-judgmental, and inclusive and accepting of different experiences and cultures and abilities. A little bit of logistics around housekeeping. You're muted and off camera because right now I see close to 300 people are logged in, so we're very excited. This is being recorded because I imagine you'll want to share it with other people, so we will have the recording later along with slides, and you can also use closed captioning if you like. Please use the chat for technical issues, or if you need to chime in or share something with the group. But if you have questions for Sharonda, please put those in the Q&A box. We can't copy and paste it for you. Don't know why Zoom doesn't allow that, but we might have to ask you to put your question into there. We will queue those up for Sharonda near the end. Evaluation is really important. Your feedback means a lot. So we would really appreciate your response to a very short survey. It just takes literally 2 minutes to complete after the session. It does ask you for a pretty lengthy personal code, but you can use whatever numbers and letters you like. We aren't going to follow up with you. We just want to get your feedback. So put in whatever you're comfortable with, and we'll share that link in the chat box today and by reminder via email tomorrow. We're required to do this survey, but we really actually look at your feedback in an aggregated way, share it with presenters, and it helps us know if we're on target about the topics and things you want to hear. And it keeps the free training coming. So now to the good stuff, Sharonda. We are so fortunate to have her here. Just a little quick story. I first heard her speak on this very topic about 3.5 years ago, prior to COVID. So I got to see her at least present in person at that time. I was very moved. I just started this job about 6 months prior, and I was really impressed with the topic, how frank and real it was, your delivery. And I finally reached her, and I'm so glad you're here with us today to share this. Sharonda Jamerson obtained a master's degree in clinical psychology in 2012 from City University College in Seattle, Washington. She became a certified chemical dependency professional prior to that in 2007. Her experiences include developing, implementing, and presenting EDI trainings to associations of healthcare professionals, healthcare providers, schools, community-based organizations. She's presented, as I just shared, at state and national behavioral health conference on these topics of DEI and healthcare equity. And as you'll see, she presents with confidence and passion. Sharonda, we're so grateful to have you here. Let's pause and just make sure if we want to share the results of who's in the room, and then I'll turn it over to you. I will stop screen sharing. And if you see the results, hopefully, Gabrielle, our wonderful.
Yep. Results have been shared already.
Awesome.
And I'm sharing them for a second time now.
Perfect. And if you wonder, how do I get that box off my screen? You should be able to click a little X in the corner. That sometimes confuses people. But Sharonda, we'll take it away.
Okay, I am bringing up my PowerPoint. And hello all. Thank you for joining me today. Technology is not my friend, so I may fumble until I get this going. Geez. I'll say move that out the way. Go ahead.
Yeah, you do that, and I'll just yammer on for a minute while you get that set up, because I know that's always pressure when you're on. I did want to share that Sharonda is also presenting tomorrow. So kind of same time, same channel, and will be other really great contact. And here she goes. We are also recording podcasts for the same topic, so we'll see about that too.
I'm okay. Let's see. We did this earlier. Okay, if you guys don't mind seeing my slides previously, then we can leave that up. I'm not a polished I'm not a polished presenter. I am a person who's like to speak truth to power and like to explain things. I am, as I think was mentioned, I'm a mental health therapist. I started off with children and families, and then I went on to work inside the jail, and then now I'm here at Harborview working with homeless, from homeless on up to, you know, those who can pay and private pay. So I have about I want to put my own timer on because I get very passionate about this because I love this work. And I will definitely try to get through this, but not rush too quickly. I do talk fast. I'm from Illinois. I apologize for that. With that being said, let's get started. So I always start, one thing with me, I don't always just want to talk about what the problems are. I always want to dig a little deeper. And I believe those of you in schools or at the hospitals or in therapists, we want to understand, why is it? Not just what is it, but why it is. And so I'm hoping that once we go through this presentation, that some of your questions will be answered. And if not, then there's a Q&A. So the practice. So let me tell you what the practice is. So the practice is for you to demonstrate respect for your own experience. Our society and everybody wants to tell you how to think, how to act, how to be. I'm asking you today to show up in this space owning and experiencing your own have your own experience and own it. That's the only way you're going to be able to move past. That's how you start doing your core work around this, is if you just own how you experience what you're experiencing, and don't allow anyone else to give you your own experience, because people are quick to tell you, oh, that's not what happened. That's, you read too much into it. But no, own it, own your experience. Translate your meaning. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Don't say what you think or other people want you to say. There's liberty and judgment in everything you do or say. And if that's the truth, then speak your truth. Listen to yourself. I know it sounds like a repeat, but as psychology said, you repeat it long enough, people start downloading it and actually start practicing it. If you choose to blend in with the crowd, then you give up the opportunity to stand out from the crowd. How can you make changes if you just want to go along to get along? Those two cancel each other out. It doesn't work. And if I'm talking too fast, I'll try to slow down because I get excited, you guys. I get excited about this work. Demonstrate that you are coachable. All of us have been conditioned to believe much of what we believe. We need to be open to self-discover without being concerned about popular opinion or hurt feelings. We have no control over how other people feel. We don't know what they are carrying. We never know what's going to spark, inspiration or what's going to make them feel bad. That's not our concern. That's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to be truthful and honest and show up as our authentic self as best as we can, because everything else will adapt around us. It does everyone a disservice if you go along to get along and just be bland and just, want to blend in. It doesn't work that way. Moving on to the next. When race and racism is the elephant in the room, how to bring up the conversation. Learn objective: to increase the success rate of fair and impartial treatment, to become better provider, and to decrease harm to marginalized communities. I got a question for you, and hopefully I will answer this as we go through. How did the race become the elephant in the room? Where did it come from? Why is it there? Why is it so hard? And elephants are big. So why can't we talk about this elephant that's sitting here, that's hovering over us? That's my question. I'm going to answer it. Okay. Own your feelings, people. The United States was built on genocide, and all the stuff is documented. All the stuff is researched. You can find it. And we all know some of the history. Deliberate killing of many people from particular nations and ethnic group out of greed. Let's call it what it is, out of greed. Half truth. Statements that convey only part of the truth, especially when used deliberately in order to deceive people. Sound familiar? We've seen some of that in part of the election that we just had recently. Untruth, a lie, false statement, mass weapon of destructions. I don't know. Greed, we just talked about that. Intense and selfish desire for something, for something, especially wealth and power. Gaslighting. Manipulation by psychological means. And when I tell you how deep the gaslighting is, there are Fortune 500 company pay psychologists to come in and I can't remember the name of the discipline that comes in to study different cultures, but they come and find out what cultures does what, so they can understand how the brain works, so they can know how to market you and get your mind onto what they want you to think about and not what you should be thinking about. I hope I didn't confuse you. If this is so, then what does it say about our Constitution? We're about to get into that. And I promise I will tie all this together. The Constitution is the fundamental law of the United States of America, right? And it determines the government and their traditions and basic rights of civilians. They determine what our rights should be. So Roe versus Wade been overturned. They determine that. When slavery is, when slavery is not, they determine that. When racism became a public health crisis, they determine that. Now here's the deal. Slavery and abusing others has been a part of our society forever and a day. What took them so long to say that now it is a public health crisis? Has it not always been a public health crisis? So let's talk about slavery a little bit. Slavery started in 1619. 168 years later, the Constitution of the U.S. was signed in September of 1787. 76 years after the President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863. 244 years had passed from the beginning of slavery until that form of slavery ended. What does that tell you? I'm pausing for a minute because I want you to think about that. Biases can be found in the Constitution, laws, policies, which started and fuel systematic institutional racism. What you got to understand is, I'm losing my thoughts. Sorry about this, you guys. So white supremacy got started before the origins of the United States. That's how the elephant has come into the room. The opinions about anything that's outside of white, the others, there was already opinion formed and laws around who they are, they, others, who they are, what they deserve, what they don't deserve, and who will rule and who will have access to resources and so on and so forth. That's how the elephant became in the room. The biases was created through these steps and processes. And it was half truth when they said all men are created equals. What they didn't say, and what they should have said, because what they meant was all white men are created equals. That's what this is, the society and the caste system was designed for. So for those visual people, here's the visual. So if from 1619 to 1800, that was actual slavery where, you know, someone was owned by another person. And in some cases, there were actually some Black owners who who was never slaves or was able to get their freedom, and they begin to own slaves themselves, Black and white slaves. I don't know, you know, that's not a big part of history, but that part is also true. When slavery ended, then we went into another form of slavery, which is Jim Crow South. Blacks here, white here, so on and so forth. Slavery has always been since biblical days, and it is now. People seem to think that slavery has gone away. Slavery has not gone away. It's been modernized. It is always, and from what I can see, I don't really see it going away. I always see it it's changing to look differently. And that's why it's hard to track. When you are wrapped in privilege, then you don't have to pay attention to the things that people of color have to pay attention to. We have to pay attention to it in order to survive. You don't have to pay attention to it because it don't apply to you. You have to want and choose to want to participate in what we're talking about today. People of color don't have a choice to choose to participate or not. We don't have that choice, or we will die much faster at a much faster rate. Truth versus reality. And I'm trying to slow down because my brain is just going crazy. Truth versus reality. I'm gonna give you the short version of the difference. Truth allow for change. Reality allow for you to stay the same. What do I mean? When we are faced with difficult situations and challenges and decisions, what we do is we'll take a truth and we'll bend it to fit our reality so we won't have to do anything about it. But truth says, this is what's going on, and I am going to have to change the way I think, act, and show up in order to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And if we can, since we talked about slavery, truth is slavery happened. For some people, reality, they're telling people, they're saying that slavery, we came over here as interns. That makes it easier for people to digest. Oh, they came over as interns, and we know the interns come over, they get a job, they get skills, they get, we came over, we was forced over here, we got jobs, but we wasn't getting paid for them. And it's not just Black people. It's not just Black people. It's the others. Tomorrow we'll talk a little bit about, you know, the Chinese coming over here doing the railroad, the transcontinental, and then we'll talk a little bit about how United States stole land from Mexico, and then how all that contribute to how we label people, and how we label people is going to be how we treat people, and how we label them is according to the ideology that has been passed down to our educational system, which was again created by white men. So racism at its most basic level is the lens through which people interpret why am I blanking? Naturalize and reproduce inequalities. We all struggle to truly see one another due to the conditions that has been imposed upon us through the accumulation of lies and deceit. This is why it's so difficult for us to have real conversations about real things that matter, things that heal. Racism is not a white issue. It is an issue, systematic structural issue that builds the dominant culture into a position of power, the white culture. The system oppress those who don't identify as white. Our biases go everywhere we go. It really works my nerves when they say bias in the judicial system, or bias, you know, in schools, or bias here. Bias is everywhere you go, everywhere you show up, there it is. And the reason why that's important to point out is because when we say bias at work or bias at school, then we only really hone in and be conscious and cognitive of our biases when we're in those spaces, but we don't monitor ourselves when we're in the grocery store. We don't monitor ourselves when we're at the gym, and bias is everywhere and it impacts everywhere you go. Our biases go where we go, in our homes, in our workplace, school, community, etc. It is crucial for we the people to fix what has been broken in ourselves, our community, and our society. And thank you for being patient with me. I got to slow my brain down. Important to understand white supremacy. A lot of white people get very upset when they say, but I struggle and my dad worked hard, my family worked hard. That's not what white supremacy is. The social, economic, and political systems that collectively enable white people to maintain power over people of other races. White privilege advantages a person has in society because of their white skin. And I'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow, but that means that you have the privilege when you go to the doctor. 9 times out of 10, there's a doctor who look like you. If you go to school, 9 times out of 10, there's a teacher who look like you or a principal who look like you. When you have an encounter with a police officer, there's 9 times out of 10, you're gonna have an officer who looks like you. That's not always the case for us. Systematic racism, group level processes and structures that are implicated in the reproduction of racial inequality, and then racialized trauma. Every time we see shootings in Buffalo, or we see in Uvalde, or when we see at the Club Q, what just happened, all that stuff, it impacts us whether we know it or not. And then we wonder, why am I feeling this way? Why am I acting this way? Why am I so aggressive? Why am I angry? Why can't I sleep? All these things impact us. And it doesn't just have to happen to one group of people. When something happened to other groups, I'm not a part of the LGBTQ community, but I love them and I engage them all the time. But what happens to them, it happens to me. What happens to in Uvalde, it happens to me too. Effects of structural power and racism. Now, I have a person who does research for me and get these numbers. So my numbers are a little off, but it still speaks the truth as to what the society has, as how this society is structured. Still, the top 10 richest Americans are white. You want to know part of the reason why that is because when other communities get together and pull themselves together, and I can specifically speak on Black people, but I know that it's not just Black people, but when we get together, we pull our resources together, we do what we're supposed to do, we build our town, we build our communities, it gets burned down. And it's not just in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but it's also in OC, in Florida. It's several places in Florida and Georgia. It always get burned down every time we try to build ourselves up or disband, or they move us out the way so they can build like their park, like Central Park in New York. That's one of them where Black people used to be, and they pushed it out so they can have that. Or they might want a waterfront, and so they'll just build on top of Black communities after they kill them or push them out so they can have this landscape. There could be more billionaires of color had those atrocities not taken place in history. Our Congress, most of our government, most of our military, vice president, Freedom Caucus, mostly are white. And can I go back here? We got some great white people in society. So let me just put that out there. If you look at the Underground, you look at the Underground Railroad, if you look at the Quakers, if you look at John Brown, there's a lot of great white people. People that you see here on the screen, these are the white people who have white fear, which is if other cultures of people get a house, get a loan, get a business, start doing well, then they think it's going to be less for them. Not all white people act like that or believe like that, but a lot of these people here, and here's the deal, when these people start acting up, society will tell you, oh, those are white trash people. Bull. These people were lawyers, doctors, police officers, nurses. They were all over. And these are places that people of color have to come in contact with in order to get their needs met. So we can't escape this. That's why these types of topics are important to have these conversations, because there's a lot of mistruths and half truths and what did Trump call it? Fake news out there. And then here's more. The one thing I don't really care for, uh, Facebook and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. But what I do appreciate about it is it levels the playing field. Prior to that happening, we was relegated to just watch whatever those in power say that we can watch. The news reporters is no, in my opinion, is no longer news. They're reporting through their biases as well. They're not just reporting the facts. But now Facebook and Instagram it levels out the type, and TikTok levels out the information that we get, and we don't have to rely on just a couple sources. So that's what makes things more competitive now. That's why people are having more of the conversation and more willing to take it there, because now they have the evidence. When I was in school, when I was going to school for my master's degree, and I realized, I said, the truth is hidden. You have to be educated and have money to access the truth. Lies are served up on a platter, everyday platter. So let me tell you what I mean. When I was in school, and I had to do my thesis, I had to go to the library of the school I was attending. I had to select the courses that I was taking, and I only had access to the information related to my search. There's so much information out there that is locked away. Why? They don't want us to know the truth. Why don't they want us to know the truth? Ask yourself that. That's another thing that creates the elephant in the room. There's so much information that is hidden from us, because the truth will allow for us to come together and look past our color, our gender, our sexuality, our religion, and actually see each other's humanity. That's what they don't want. Why do you think they created the CRT? Laws against CRT. We don't want this taught in the schools. Well, first of all, this was never taught in elementary or secondary school. It was taught in college. And for those who may not know, CRT is critical race theory, and it is lawyers. It was Black lawyers who was trying to say, why are we still having these issues with the police and issues on our jobs and issue when it comes to loan owning, when all these different laws have been passed? It's just trying to figure out, why are we still here when these laws have been passed, through the Civil Rights Act, where it's supposed to have granted us more access and more equality in these areas that we have been pushed out of. And fun fact, did you know that African Americans' rights was just renewed to continue to vote and in the election process? They just really try to make us second-class citizen forever. But I believe personally, and I've seen, if you look at history, I'm not a history buff, but I love history, and I do a lot of study in history. When you had Irish slaves and you had Black slaves, they did not understand each other's languages, but they had a common purpose. And because they understood the goal was to become free, they started colluding together. And so when the overseers start saying, oh boy, it's too many of them, not enough of us, then we gotta release one of them. And then that's when they said, okay, we're gonna release the Irish people, right? And we're gonna keep the Black as permanent slaves. Yes, so there was white slaves, but they was indigenous slaves. So that means they had an opportunity to age out of slavery and to get land and property to move on. That's the difference. So people like to say, there was white slaves. Yes, there were, but they got opportunities that the Black slaves never got. We never got our 40 acres and our mules, by the way. So here's what society tried to tell us. Know your place. I have rights. I say I have rights. The only rights you have are the ones that I give you. There's a law that was written that said Black people, and I'm going to assume that it's across the board, because once you find something that works, you definitely, take out Black people, put LGBTQ, take LGBTQ out, put Muslim in, take Muslim out. I mean, it's the same playbook, just with different players. That says we will never have any rights that a white man will have to respect. And even if you don't say know your place, when someone is speaking up for themselves or speaking up for their community, and you say, who do you think you are? That's a nice little way of saying know your place. You out of your place. I have the privilege of being totally unaware of my own privilege. We really have to walk, and then we need to get away from this. Everybody on this screen, everybody that's represented on this screen we're all human. We all bleed, we all die, we all of this is true. But the one that's checked is so important that everything in the society has been designed for them, particularly for the white men, even if you don't want it, even if you don't think that white privilege is, I know that some white people feel like white privilege is a burden to them. I get that. But what I would say to you is that own your privilege, don't run from it, because what you try to press down is like a beach ball that you're trying to push down in the water. It'll pop back up. Own your privilege, extend that privilege to somebody who may not have that privilege. I'm starting to see more and more of that happening now to share resources, to share knowledge, to share what you have. And if we are looking at people this way, then the question is, where did you get your ideology? Who told you that Muslims were terrorists, was a terrorist? That people who have slanted eyes, they can't see. And it's a shame that we reduce each other to a color, to one thing, to a color, to an action, to a religion, to a sexuality. Why do we do that when there's so much more to all of us? And here's the funny thing. Everybody you see on this particular slide, all their nationality contribute to our society to make it what it is today, the better parts of it. And what I can tell you is statistics have shown that the Latinx community contribute most economically to the US during COVID time when everything else was shut down. Those are my statistics. I read those statistics, and it was featured on the news, actually. How do we unlearn racism? How do we do that? How do we clear the elephant out the room? I have a suggestion. My suggestion is get involved, allow yourself to be uncomfortable, get used to being uncomfortable, for one. Go to a synagogue. They will welcome you. Go to a mosque. They will welcome you. They want to tell you. I was looking at Meghan Markle, and she was saying that when the stakes are this high, we need to tell our own story. Let the Black, Brown, Native American, let the LGBTQ folks, let the Muslim people, let them tell their own story. Listen. That's what we got 2 ears for and 1 mouth. We're supposed to listen more than we talk. Implicit bias. Attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, decision-making, behaviors without even realizing it. Meaning that I don't judge people. Of course you do. Why? Because subconsciously we're already sizing people up. We want to know, are you a threat? Are you not a threat? Am I attracted to you? What's your gender? What's your color? Automatically, that's how we condition. That's what we're conditioned to do. So just because it's not in your conscious mind, it doesn't mean you're not doing it. And it doesn't mean that you're not acting out of it either, just because you're not conscious of it. So first impressions are made quickly, snapshot judgments, exposure to the unknown faces. One of the reasons why they said it's not good for, like, let's say me to witness a crime and it's someone outside of my race is because we're not good at describing someone outside of our race. Why? Because we're not good at looking at people in their face and actually seeing them. And if you look at the imagery that has been done with the Asian people, with the buck teeth, or Black people with the big lips, all in the imageries, or the Hispanics, always, dirty or little or whatever the case may be, Those are not truths. Those are, go back to the top of my slides. Those are the lies that was created so we can keep our distance from one another. We come together, we love each other, we respect each other. This world will turn around, and half the things that we are experiencing, we won't experience no more. And those therapists in the room, I know you will understand, and I believe you agree with this. Majority of the problems that I see come my way is because people are having problem with relationship, lost a relationship, codependent relationship, dysfunctional relationship. And guess what? All those apply to us when we're trying to get to know each other. So when we're trying to get to know each other, understand mistakes are going to be made. They're supposed to be made. The analogy that I use is that when you go on a job and it's a new job, you need support. You're going to make mistakes. You need supervision. All those things are required even now when we're trying to get to know each other's humanity and put the other stuff that really doesn't matter aside. Women have accomplished great things. Our stories are just now starting to come out about how much we have contributed to the society. White men have done some great work as well. Everyone has done great work. There's good and bad in every single culture. There's intelligence in every culture. There is skills in every culture, but we only highlight what we want to highlight, and we cherry pick what we want to cherry pick. Depending on what our experiences are. If someone got robbed by somebody, oh, I can't stand all this. And why is it that when a person of color commit a crime, and let's not act like white people don't commit a crime, because my friend worked for the Seattle PD and she keeps track of biases crimes, and majority of the crimes are white men doing it. And you can, all the stuff is statistical. You can look at it, you can look it up. It's all the numbers are there. But it's like when white people commit a crime, it's like, oh, we single them out. They have mental health, they have family issues, blah, blah, blah. But when people of color commit a crime, it's all of them. They're all like that. Why do we do that? We know that ain't true. Oh, geez. Well, I'm not a racist. I don't see color. I can't begin to tell you how offensive people are when they say, I don't see color. If you don't see color, how can you see any person's trauma? How can you see, how can you know how to treat them, whether it's in the hospital, whether it's in the school, whether it's wherever? I will tell you this. When I was working in a school, there was a young white man, a young white male. Him and his family came from Philadelphia. His family was so busy trying to create a life for them that they moved around a lot. He was participating in gang activity, and they had it out with a rival gang, and one of the young man's friends had got shot and killed and died in his arm. Family didn't know that because they're too busy making a life for themselves that they failed to check in with their kids. Sometimes the way we love is not the love that is needed. So we really have to check in with other people to find out what is their love language and see how we can show love back and forth, right? So why am I telling this? Because the young man had got the school had called the school had called his family and said he was acting up in school, and that's how I got involved. The young man came to me and said, there's nothing going on. I'm fine. Everything's good. And I can tell by his body language when I bring up certain things, because they did feed me some information. The school resource officer was telling me some of the things that they've experienced with him. And like I said, I was new there. And so I would bring up certain topics with him, and his body language would switch up. So I knew what bothered him and what didn't bother him. And so by the time our little time was over with, I said, so let me just tell you what I seen. This, and this bother you. This, and this don't bother you. I said, give me three sessions with you. And if I can't help you, then you don't have to come back. And of course he was intrigued because he knew I knew what I was talking about. So one day he came in very angry, and I finally talked to him. He was planning to go home to kill his parents. He was going to go home and kill his parents because he had pain And this is what I know to be true. As I said in the beginning of this webinar, I don't only want to see what's happening, I want to know why it's happening. He had pain. He was acting out of his pain. He couldn't articulate what his pain was. He couldn't articulate his emotions. So it comes out of his behavior. Even as an adult, we can't always pinpoint what our emotions is or where it's coming from or whatever. And so sometimes it comes down to our behavior. He was telling me that his father had, put him up against the wall and was like, you know how hard we work for this life and blah, 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 blah. And he said, and right then, he felt like he was being punished for having pain that he couldn't explain. So he was going to go kill his family and himself so everybody can be out of pain. So why am I telling you the story? Because if I didn't see him, then I wouldn't have been able to stop what was going to happen that evening. His skin color didn't matter. The fact that he's in the upper echelons, he had, his family come from money. If I would let any of that get in the way, I wouldn't have been able to help him or support him. And I will get to how to bring up these conversations in a therapeutic setting, or how to bring them up, period. Strategies to interrupt implicit bias. Good intentions are not good enough. And I'm gonna give you a whole story behind this. Collect data, monitor inequities, reduce the discretion, and behaving or speaking in such a way to avoid causing offense. Just do the best you can. But there's time when you are going to offend. Accept the feedback when you do offend, because all of us have blind spots. We cannot see everything about ourselves. It takes you to tell me how I'm showing up, and it takes me to tell you how you're showing up. We have blind spots. We just can't see everything, and we don't know everything. Even if we think we do, we don't. Be objective, develop or implement improvements of some type of process. Do something. Don't just sit back and do nothing and be like, oh, I can't, it's too big. And no, stop making excuses. Get out there, make something happen. Promote workplace diversity and inclusion. You can have diversity, but that doesn't mean you have inclusion. It doesn't mean it's inclusive. And if you're not being inclusive, then the diversity will go away, because no one wants to stick around for that. Imagery and role modeling and accountability. So let me give you an example. My job is really trying hard to do better, right? So effective last year, they're trying to honor the different cultures, through food. The first year was 2 years ago. For Black History Month, they wanted to cook a meal from the Black culture. I wasn't here this particular day, but my phone was ringing off the hook. They had fried chicken, watermelon. They had their type of greens or whatever. I mean, people was hotter than fish grease. You hear me? So I came back to work and I contacted the director of food service, said, here's are the complaints. So this is what they did. They created a focus group of all different kinds of people. And they talked about, so this is good intention. So the good intention was, we want to celebrate you, but it went sideways, right? Collecting the data. Why did it go sideways? So when they created the focus group, then every month when we're celebrating a different culture, we bring in those cultures, bring the people to the table, people who you're trying to celebrate, who you're trying to engage with, bring them to the table, listen to them, hear from them, plan with them, execute with them. And so last year, it went over wonderfully. Why? Because they gathered the information, they changed up what they did, they invited people to the focus group, and they executed. Managing your personal implicit bias. If you haven't taken the Harvard implicit bias test, that's a good place to start. If you're triggered by something, that's worth investigating, because we have our subconscious and our conscious. Our subconscious is much bigger, carries more data. So if something triggers us, then we need to investigate that, right? Slow down, feel our feelings, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Don't just stay comfortable and you're, around the people that you know and like. Positive or negative stereotypes that influence perceptions. That labeling again, I'm gonna talk a little bit about that more tomorrow. elicit diversity input, diverse input, have multiple, if you're a person like to read, have multiple authors, not just one set of authors, have multiple authors, have multiple, like in my office, I have LGBTQ flag. I have stuff from China, Native American stuff. I have stuff from Mexico here. I want people to feel welcome. I even have Wakanda Forever for those who like to go out the universe, because sometimes I like to go out the universe. This one's hard sometimes. So here are some of the reactions that I get from people when trying to do this work. I don't want to be called a racist. Okay, so how people label you, you have no control over. When they start labeling you and you label other people, you're labeling people out of your ignorance, and they're labeling you out of their ignorance. How you show up should be how you want to show up, regardless of the labels that is put on you, or no matter what people call you. Me being a Black woman in white America, you could only imagine what I was called. And me speaking truth to power, yeah, it hasn't been a joyous experience all the time, but I am staying authentic to who I am. And as I was talking to someone earlier, getting fired is not a consequence to me. Being written up is not a consequence to me. Losing sight of who I am, that's a consequence to me. And I just refuse to allow anyone to make me believe that I'm less than, I'm not smart enough, I can't do. I will not go there. Go ahead and label me as you wish. I will find my community, or my community will find me, and life will continue to happen. Trust and believe. I don't know what I don't know what to say, so I don't say anything. Complacency is not an out. Okay. You have to speak up when you see something wrong. And even if you don't know what to say something, get the conversation started. Okay, I hate to bring this name up, but Kanye, oh God, help me. This man, I'll just put it this way, he got the conversation started. I'll just put it that way. I feel guilty and I'm ashamed. Again, there's no need for you to feel guilty. And there's no need for you to feel the shame. Why? Because again, if you remember the top of this webinar, we talked about why the elephant came into the room. We have all been conditioned to look at each other in ways that is not helpful and not healing. The divide didn't come from us. We played along until we couldn't play along anymore. We didn't know any better until we did. So whatever happened up until this point, we're not responsible for. But once we understand and know what's happening, now we're responsible for how we show up and the changes that that we need to make. And we got to get guilt and shame out the way, because guilt and shame keep the system in play that we say we want to interrupt and that we don't want to deal with anymore, right? We have to push past how we feel. Feelings are temporary, they come and go. Truth remains, and no matter how we feel, we have to do, or should do, the right thing, despite how it makes you feel. And sometimes doing the right things will feel lonely for a period of time, till other people decide, you know, hey, let me catch up. And that began to happen after George Floyd. Unfortunately, it couldn't happen before. And what I seen happen, at least on my end, from my personal experience, is that people of color have been telling people in power, white people in power, what our experience have been in community, at work, at school, at church, wherever. And because they couldn't see it and it wasn't tangible to them, it's like, oh, you know, can't be that bad. No. And so my plea to you, people in power, when people tell you what their experiences are, believe them. Don't wait until someone who look like you do something that's against your moral, and they're, oh my God, oh, I can't believe it. I didn't know that was happening. No, you knew it was happening because we told you it was happening. You just didn't believe until you seen someone who looked like you actually do it. And another example was in the situation that I think it was in Philadelphia, where those Black men had went into Starbucks. The one white lady, I love her for this. She said, I was sitting there, I seen the whole thing. I couldn't believe the police was called. These men did absolutely nothing. So she finally seen their humanity because of what she witnessed. She said, but if I was at home watching this on TV, I would have said they did something. That can't be the whole story. They had to have done something. Why? Because the police, because authority came in, and they're so honest. They don't write bad reports. They don't lie on people. That's why. And I'm not against the police. I'm not against the police. I love the police. I got friends who are police officers, and we go back and forth. But just because you don't always agree, don't mean that you can't still show respect and courtesy toward one another. I have friends who are color. So let me tell you what that really means. It means that I found this person who doesn't act like the rest of them. So I feel comfortable enough to bring them into my community and claim them as my friend because they don't act or talk like them other people. So when they say I have friends of color, that's because the person who is of color, they don't see them as they see the rest of them. But that's a setup because, like, again, all of us have been conditioned to see each other differently. How it shows up and how we show up and how we act is going to be different. So if the person of color who you brought into your community have behaviors or resemble from time to time the people who you say is very different from them, you fooled me, you duped me. Did I? Or did you just see what you want to see and you caught me on my best days? I'm just saying. It doesn't mean that you've accepted the race of people. It just means you cherry picked and select who you wanted to be in your community and said, this is my friend. What about the rest of us? I'm just saying. Talk about trauma. Okay, so this is what I know to be true as well. I've seen a lot of white people very angry, and I can't even be upset about it, but they was very angry because let's take the George Floyd situation. Everybody was up in arms. Everybody feelings was everywhere. It was flying everywhere, and the platform was given to people of color. And then when you're talking about trauma, I don't care who you are, it incites other people's trauma. So then you have white people who felt like, I can't even talk about my trauma or my hurt or my pain or this, that, and the other because of them. So now we're othered again. We finally get a platform, and it upsets some white people because now they feel like they have to hold their stuff inside. You don't have to hold your. This is not the pain Olympics. We don't have to talk about, oh, my pain is greater. No, pain is pain. Let's meet each other. Let's hold on to each other. Let's heal with each other, and let's bond with each other. Okay, yeah, I'm trying to. So here. Open up for something new. Courage does not always roar. Sometimes courage is the quiet voice at the end of the day saying, I will try again tomorrow. And the day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud was more painful than the risk it took to bloom. Folks, it's time for us to bloom and then get into some good trouble. If you look through history, nothing ever changed without causing a little bit of problems. We need to pick our battles and make sure that there's something on the other side for us if we're going to engage. Let's not get into stupid battles where no one wins, right? But cause more pain for ourselves. Good trouble can give good results. So let me show you what happened. And I know, this is nationwide, but let me show you what happened briefly in Washington State when we started good trouble. A capital gains tax was done. Working families got more tax credit. Public health got expanded for homelessness got unhoused, got more money. Climate justice happened. Police reform happened. The state budget was reevaluated, and Juneteenth came about because we had good trouble, and we had so many people fighting, writing their senators, showing up at the Capitol, demanding, we are the people. They work for us. We gotta, and that's another reason why I want to keep us apart, because if we come together, we can make these kind of changes. This is a world I want to live in. We can make this happen. This is what I want. And let's talk about actions of getting there, right? The time is going to always be now, like Dr. King said, to do the right thing. The time is always now, in the moment. Why shouldn't you wait later? Because people, we are so forgetful. We have to confront situations right then and there. You wait a week later, like, I don't remember that. I don't remember saying that. I don't remember doing that. I don't remember wearing that. No, let's confront it always in the moment. Stop looking outside of yourself for motivation and permission to blaze the trail of change. Take the risk. All of us are equipped with everything we need to make the changes. Let's just align ourselves. And then that 3-cord strand is just that much harder to break, right? Do not concern yourself with other people's opinion. I will tell you that so many people has stopped themselves from doing what they know to be right because they were so concerned about being blackmailed or being labeled as a troublemaker or whatever the case may be. We cannot concern ourselves about other people's opinion. We just cannot. Embrace conflict. Oh, people, listen. Conflict is not a bad thing, right? So, and I engage in conflict all the time. Conflict just means that I'm confronting, that's coming against me. So conflict get a bad name because we wait until we get angry and things build and build and build, and then we snap and go off. That makes conflict look bad. Conflict is basically saying that, wait a minute, you said that you was going to show up for this training, but you couldn't because you had a family death or something like that. And then you talked the next week and said, no, I couldn't show up because I overslept. Okay, which one is it? You're just confronting the behavior. You're confronting what is being said to you. You're making people take ownership and accountability of what they're saying and how they're showing up and how they impact. That's all it is. And it's not a bad thing. I would advise it. I advise it. Mix and mingle with those who are different than you. Let them help you to unlearn what you think you know. Lean into your privilege. We already talked about that. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. We talked about that. And if you choose to blend in, we talked about that, then you give up the right to be different. Now, all that being said, how do we bring up the conversation? Here's coded language. You just don't get it. That's coded language. So what do you do when someone say, you just don't get it? Tell me what I don't get. Explain to me what I'm missing. There might be aspects to or am I missing something? Or you can say, or they may say, that may work for you, but that doesn't work for me. Oh, again, what's the difference? What's the difference? Why would it work for me and not for you? Because we're given advice according to our own experiences, according to our resources, right? So we got to really understand where the person is coming from in order to be able to support, help, and encourage them, right? So that's another piece of coded language. What's wrong? Why are you not listening to? And you swear you're listening, but they're still getting agitated, right? Why are you so agitated? Because you're not listening. What am I missing again, right? So these are just body languages that you can also tell and have discernment. If you feel like you're getting stuck with a client or a patient or what have you, just say, I'll tell you what I've done. There's a lot of things I don't know about your culture that I'm going to need you to teach me. And this is for any client. Teach me how to help you. This is a partnership. I don't know everything. And in order for me, and I tell them, in order for me to help you, you have to teach me who you are. Other than that, I don't really know what to do for you. I will tell them that. And when I brought this up, and then if you are a white provider, and you could say, I there's some differences in the room. I do acknowledge that, however you want to phrase it. And if that is an issue, can we just put it out there and have a conversation about it? There's some people who wore pins that says Black Lives Matter. I will tell you that there was a Black family who got wheeled into the ER, and they said that the only reason why they was willing to work with the doctors is because they had the Black Lives Matter pin on them, or because they had the LGBTQ, or they had the ribbon. I have a ribbon for sexual assault on my badge, the color. And so so all these different things can open up conversations. As I told you, sometimes they come in and say, where'd you get your Chinese stuff? Where'd you get, is this from China? And then we can start talking about different things. If none of that works, other things I have done is ask them what kind of music do you like? And I will look up the lyrics to the words, and I'll say, what is it about this song and these words that you connect to get the conversation going? What kind of foods do you like? So anything that's culture related, you can bring it up and have those conversations. It can start off as very innocent. It doesn't have to be solution based, right? In the beginning, it's just gathering the facts. What kind of food, what kind of music, where do you go? What do you do at your downtime? All those are clues. And then how they respond and act towards you are clues to let you know that there's a coded language. And I sent out, and I'm hoping you guys got it, the poem where it was written for a man who had mental illnesses. And it says, please hear what I'm not saying. That applies to people of color when they're talking to the power that be. Please hear what I'm not saying. So what is it you want me to say? And sometimes I even handed people that poem. When I felt like I'm missing something, I'll hand them that poem and said, read that to me. Does that speak to you at all? Am I missing something? So there's different ways that we can have these conversations. Now I'm ready for your questions. And I can't see them either, so somebody had to tell me what the questions are.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Excellent. Okay, well, I can't even say how many, this chat is off the charts. It's just been going. You have resonated so much with this content, and I just love that we were able to bring you here today. So much needed content, and I think people really are appreciating it. We do have a number of questions.
Okay.
I'll try to summarize. So they're in the Q&A. So Patrick asks, I'm a white non-binary person on the middle younger end of millennial and influenced by an authoritarian upbringing that can make it hard for me to speak up in person. How can I leverage my privilege presenting as a white man or a white woman, because I'm also easily misgendered in either direction, to interfere with these systems of power?
So this is how I will respond to that. For anything you want to do, you have to be comfortable in your own body. You have to be comfortable with the knowledge that you have. Why? Because most people trying to do something different, besides public opinion and other people's opinion, which hold them back, it is also the fear of not knowing how to engage and not knowing how to respond, and the fear of worried about offending people. Those are you have to do the core work and not, pardon my language, and not give a damn about what other people think about you. You are who you are, and we need you to show up as your authentic self, because when you show up as your authentic self, then you're making the world adjust to who you are. But as long as you hiding behind whatever you're hiding behind, then that means life get to go on the way life get to go on, and then you will never ever get the results that you're looking for when you never really show up for yourself. You have to show for yourself before you can show for anybody else. Oh, I'm starting to get, y'all listen. I hope I answered your question.
No, I mean, these are very complex questions, and I know it's very difficult to do it in this kind of setting, but I appreciate you doing what you can. So here's another question. Is it possible for one minority to be racist towards another minority if there's no systemic power over either group? Complex question. I know you don't know all the details.
Okay.
Do what you want with trying to answer that.
Okay, so this is what I will say. I personally don't believe that one culture, marginalized culture, can be racist toward, can we have bias? Can we be prejudiced? Can we be a-holes? Absolutely. So the reason why I'm saying that is this. John H., I can't remember his last name, but he's a white man that came from Canada who settled in New York, who created white supremacy, right? So he created the standard. You have white psychiatrists who created what's normal, right? You have white men who created the Constitution. So the power is built in these systems. We didn't create the systems. We just was introduced into, we were born into these systems, right? So we can undo what we didn't create. And we cannot have power over, being a racist, is power is built in there. We don't have that kind of power over another race. We just don't. And while we're on it, I hear a lot of Black people say, it's not my job to educate people. 100% true. However, the saying is, if we're not at the table, then we're on the menu. And so that means we have to be at the table if we don't want to be on the menu. So somebody's going to have to teach somebody something. And I am more than willing to be a part of that process because I am tired of being on the menu. I want to eat at the table and set the table.
Thank you. Another question, how would you suggest we respond to patient requests to meet with a clinician of color? On one hand, we want to, sorry, so many questions in here right now.
No, Christina, can you start over because I was looking at the chat? I'm sorry, I got sidetracked.
No problem. Nope, let's see. Okay, how would you suggest we respond to patient requests to work with a clinician of color? On one hand, we want to accommodate that request. On the other hand, we have to be cautious about not tokenizing our staff. And also, thank you for a wonderful presentation.
So, it is a big deal for a patient to ask for a person of color. I'm gonna tell you why. People of color are not used to advocating for themselves. They are used to just taking it on the chin and just going along with it. When the opportunity comes around and you can work with someone who looks like you, yes, that is a very delicate dance, but I will tell you, when there was one of my white colleagues was triage, and she came to me and said, there's a guy here who, she said, there's a guy here who wants to talk to a person of color. She said, I'm not asking you to do anything, just what can you tell me that can help me connect and relate to him. And so I said, I will come with you. And then I just demonstrated, some of the things and some of the concerns that he had. And then I processed with her so she can get used to. So it wouldn't have done no good for me to go and handle it. It was very good for me to go with her so she could see how I handled it. And then we process what took place, what the coded language was, why he asked for, a person of color. So she would know going forward, just in case that particular case come up, she would know how to handle it. But I do think role modeling have to be part of the equation. And as long as you act like you get it, you don't even have to be Black. They prefer, I'm sorry, it's not just Black. You don't have to be a person of color. They would take anyone who gets it, anyone who is woke, anyone who is willing to listen and not downplay their experience. That I know to be true.
Yeah, it's just genuine, trying to be real and trying to actually connect.
Absolutely.
And acknowledge the elephant in the room. I mean, honestly, like we started. Okay, great. Another question, when it comes to addressing race issues in the workplace, psychological safety is a huge barrier because at the end of the day, we need our jobs to pay our bills.
Yep.
What is your recommendation for addressing the psychological safety piece in the workplace? I know you've been through this. And I know you said earlier, I'm not afraid to get fired, and maybe not everyone can take that risk, but how do you suggest people address this or take this on?
So, okay. I think at least what they started doing here is the caucuses. They started creating a space for people to be able to come together. So we have a white caucus, a people of color caucus, Black caucus, LGBTQ caucus. So before the caucus came, I am a person with a big personality, so I don't expect for anyone to follow in my footsteps. But before all that happened, I created my own committee, and we met during our lunch hour. So they couldn't say that we couldn't meet. We could, because what I found out is that as long as they have us spaced out, the easier it is to wear us down. And the more that we came together and knew what was going on with each other, the more we can back and support each other. And then that group just grew and grew and grew. And it wasn't just people of color, it was just like-minded people. Color didn't matter because we all had a shared purpose. So psychological safety doesn't necessarily have to look like you. And beyond, and to be honest with you, everybody who looked like me ain't for me. Clarence Thomas is not for me. I don't claim him. I'm just sorry. I'm just saying. Or Tim Scott. Or Kanye West.
Yeah. Okay, can you expand more on the idea of not being afraid to say things that might offend someone? That almost seems sacrilegious in the sort of, their words, PC cancel culture world of today. Because I think it is, there's that balancing act, I'm sure, depending on where you are and what's happening. But, I know you've also talked about, like, I'm not going to stand while something wrong is happening. Yeah, so how would you answer that? Not being afraid to say things that might offend someone and still getting along in this society.
So, okay. Even on this call, everybody is in a different place in their walk, in this walk, right? Some people are just getting into it. Some people have researched it. Some people have lived experience, the whole nine. Again, we don't know what people are carrying. And this is something that I'll go a little bit more in tomorrow. Racism is hidden in our language, in our everyday language. And so, like, I correct people, like, okay, let's say something like, it is the White House. The White House was called the People's House, and it is the People's House. Why is it the White House? Dreadlocks. Our hair are not dreadful, right? We have locks. When we first came over here, they made us cover our hair because they said our hair was dreadful. That's where dreadlocks came from. So it's not dreadful, it's locks. So I do just that. So when people say things, I just call it out, but not in an accusatory way, not being defensive, not making people feel stupid. I just have the conversation. I say, I understand you may not know these things because this is what we've been conditioned and swimming in for 400 years. We came into the conversation, and until, like I said, until we know something different, we don't even know that we're being offensive, even to ourselves. So again, allow the feedback. And when people, when you are offensive, just allow the feedback. And then when people call you out, just say, thank you for letting me know. Don't get pissed off. Don't, start having a yelling match. I didn't realize that. Thank you for letting me know. Now I know. And if you're not equipped to have the hard conversation, just walk away, because they will trap you. They who are, a little bit more educated, but maybe rude or don't want the best, interest, don't have your best interest at heart, just walk away, because they will trap you into a conversation that will make you feel worse than what you did. And then it'll make you not want to try again. Never let nobody put you in a position to where they don't allow you to make a mistake. From the cradle to the grave, that's how we learn, through our experiences, through our mistakes. But if we make a mistake and learn from it, it's no longer a mistake, it's a life lesson.
Well, speaking of lessons, I just saw in the chat, and it's something that I think you and I talked about earlier as well, that there is often the juxtaposition of you're speaking out, you're risking your position, your job, your perception about you. And yet people are also asking you, I mean, I asked you, we're going to pay you, you know, and I think that's important. But that people are often put in the position of teaching others. So you're not just calling out injustices, you're not just calling out the elephant in the room, but then, well, what should we do, Sharonda? And I know in this role, I feel good, like this is something we agreed to. We have a transaction about it. We had a plan, but I know people are feeling, I've heard that in my own work in the past, is that, you know, it's not up to, you know, Black and brown people to solve racism, you know, and I saw also in the chat, you know, earlier that allies are really important to have in these training settings so people don't get immediately, you know. So how do you navigate that? You know, you've been doing this formally outside of your job for a long time. So I know that's what we're doing today, but how do you navigate that when people want to be informed, but they're putting a lot of burden on people? And so how do you navigate that? I think as someone who is trying to learn, yeah, I'll stop there because I'm just rambling, I think.
I send people articles. I just direct them where they can go get their resources, where they can get their resources. So speaking of that, every week, if you guys haven't watched, matter of fact, it comes, Soledad O'Brien come on every Sunday morning, at least on Conk TV. Man, a lot of my research come from the direction, and she's already done the research. So I'll just pick it up and do more research after because it's only a 30-minute program. So if you really want to learn this stuff and look at not people's opinion, but actual documentation, matter of fact is one of the shows I watch every single week on Sundays at 9:30. Finding Your Roots with Dr. Henry Louis Gates every single week, because those documents, census, and it tracks around the world. This is where I get some of that. Oprah has one on, I can't remember the name of her program. And then if you want to look at it in I don't want to say in a funny way, but in a more comedic way, you have Bob Hart's Abishola. And then you have The Neighborhood. So those are, if you just want to, you know, get introduced to these types of things, and you want to, if it's too much for you at one time and you just want to take it in doses, these are some of the programs I watch every single week that helps me with my journey, my learning journey. So I know what to bring forth to the table, what I think is too far hidden, in my opinion. But I have resources on hand. I send people resources, articles, books. I refer those. I refer TV program, podcasts. And I said, if you really want to know, you go do this. And then once you do this, then let's have a conversation. So that lets me know how serious they are. So if they want to put some work into it, I will add to that work, because they can't learn always on their own through books and writings. Sometimes they will have questions after reading those books or writing and listening to podcasts. And then I'm happy to just clarify some things for them, but I'm not willing to do the work. Absolutely not.
Yeah. Well, I know a few times it's been requested, could we get any links or resources that you mentioned in your talk today? And we will gather those from you. You can send us whatever you want us to include, and we will definitely put that on the product page where this recording will be, and the slides and that sort of thing. People are also requesting if you could list those shows again. We probably couldn't keep up with all of them. Personally, I don't know if people watch the Amber Ruffin show, but I got turned on to that a while ago.
Yes.
And, really, man, I mean, talk about going to the grocery store and she'll sing a song about racism, and it is very hard hitting and poignant and kind of funny, but you know, it's real. So it's really sad. But yeah, she's pretty great in that way too. So yeah, you got to do your work. You got to, but I think you also demonstrate how you're partnering. Like,
Yes.
It's not just like, let me try to enlighten you, but here's some stuff you can do.
Yep.
But probably you need to meld those things in real life. And, you know, colleagues and folks that you work with, I mean, if you're really sincere, I've had that experience too, where, you know, if you're naive or you're trying to understand, people will give you that grace that you sort of talked about, but you have to be trying. There is also a question about, can people get your contact information so you can, I knew this would happen. This is how I found you. I'm like, ooh, I really want to connect with her because the stuff is amazing. So if you want to do that, we you can put your whatever email or contact info you would like in the chat, and I'm sure people would be knocking that down. I think we are, oh, here's one last question. We still have about 10 minutes. What can I say to people who complain that they just want things to stay the same and don't wish to hear how they need to expand their vocabulary or view on progressive identity topics? As an example, a person might consider themselves a person of color, but is tired of being forced to accommodate trans rights or other concerns of other marginalized groups. I know this is going to be very sensitive. So just reading the question, I can already tell. It is difficult because it's difficult to have these conversations. This person was describing a conversation like that. And this was, was frustrated by the lack of courage on my friend's desire for inclusivity. So it's sort of like, I don't know, I've heard it's like, it's not a competition who can be included, but it's interesting. So how do you interact with folks that may be really progressive on one end and maybe not as open on the other?
Again, I what I would do is, I'm one of those type of people who want to know where the ideology is coming from. Like, why are you so closed off? Where's the threat? Because whenever you're having a conversation, you start defending. So this is, like I said, I'm not conflict averse, right? So if I'm starting to have a conversation and someone get defensive means you're defending something. What are you defending? Do you even know what you're defending? So here's an analogy. So I have, I'm in the kitchen cooking, and, you cut off the end of the turkey into the pan. My daughter asked, and this is an analogy, didn't really happen. They said, Mom, why do you cut off the edge of the pan? I don't know, my mama did it. So I go to my mom, Mama, why did you cut off the edge of the pan, or edge of the turkey? They said, because the pan wasn't big enough. So I had to cut it off for it to fit in there. So I kept cutting off the edge of the turkey, although there's pans big enough to hold the whole turkey. So I have taken on something that I don't even know why I'm even taking it on. So sometimes when you confront people and say, well, why are you doing such things? Why does this offend you? Whatever. Sometimes they don't even know. And maybe they don't want to know, but this is what I will tell you also. If they confront those things and they know it to be true, and I know this to be true because I've heard people say this, then they will have to look at their whole lineage in a whole nother way. Then that means they have to battle with people who they love. That means that they may be cutting off ties and relationships, not because they want to, but because of what they're standing for today, because this turkey don't need to be cut off anymore because it's big enough. It's big enough. And now I got to tell my parents the pan is big enough. You don't have to do that no more. Where is that going to leave me in that relationship?
Yeah. Complicated. Here's another question from a
I want to add one other thing.
Therapy.
And,
oh, yeah, of course. And
people rely or hide behind their religion. And that's another thing. We just, I hear people say, as Mormons, we don't talk about anything. We sweep underneath the rug. As Catholic, we do da. Stop hiding. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Christina.
Yeah, no, it's a whole nother webinar for sure. Okay, so within the therapist dynamic, as a white clinician serving majority Black clientele, not wanting to have my client feel that they are responsible for educating me, but also wanting to open up conversation about race and elephant in the room. How would you navigate this and have it not feel like a burden on the client? So kind of a continuation of our other chat.
Let's take race out of the equation. And this is true. How in the world can you help anybody, no matter who they are, sitting across from you, if it's not a partnership?
Mm-hmm.
They have to educate you, them, their life, their burden, their pains, their joy. It's a partnership. And I tell my clients all the time, this has nothing to do with race, but it also includes race. You have to teach me your lifestyle, you have to teach me your culture, your religion, your value system. You have to teach me these things in order for me to understand, in order for us. And I tell them, I can't help you unless you teach me what I need to know in order to be able to help you. And I tell them this is a partnership, because I know a lot of times when clients come into sessions, they want or expect for people to tell them what to do, because that's what they're accustomed to have happen, because they made choices, they made decisions, and it's like they don't trust their decisions anymore, or people always tell them that, you know, it's wrong and it's never good enough. So they expect for you to come and tell them. And I tell them, you're not broken. You're not broken. You just haven't found out who you are as a human being, as a person. You're still trying to be everything that everybody else wants you to be. Tell me who you are. Tell me what you want out of this. Tell me what you want out of life. Stop listening to everybody else, and you talk to me about who you are, what you want in this life. That has nothing to do with color, but race is also included in that. Allowing people the freedom to be who they are inside that space, because when they leave your space, they're going to be bombarded once again with family traditions and culture and religion and all that other stuff. Let them come in and be free, and let them know you're safe here. And you're here for a reason. Let me do the best that I can, but that's going to require your participation.
Well, I know the questions keep coming, but we're running out of time. I just want to say thank you to everybody who made time. This is definitely one of our top attended events, and I don't think that's a coincidence. This is important conversation to have. I really appreciate all the active dialogue in the chat. These are sensitive issues. These are important issues. And one of the questions we didn't get to, but I appreciate and just wanted to share this one thought about, you know, when you start to become aware of your racism, that ignorance and reinforcement in your family, you may have grown up in a community with little other alternative viewpoints, and we're deprogramming our defense mechanisms, recognizing our fears, trying to be the person on the outside that I believe I am on the inside. And I just wanted to sort of end with that. That was just a really nice summary of the struggle, you know, for people trying to navigate this. And I really appreciate your passion. You do this on top of your job.
Yeah.
You do this at your job, and you shared it still energizes you, even though I know it's got to be taxing on some level. So I hope you get to take a quiet moment after such a, but you know, I know you said it just gets you even more ready to, you know, be fired up. So I really appreciate your.
Well, can I end with a quote from Audre Lorde? I just want to end with this quote.
Yes, please.
You do not have to be me in order for us to fight alongside each other. I do not have to be you to recognize that our wars are the same. What we must do is to commit ourselves to some future that can include each other, and to work toward that future with the particular strength of our individual identities. And in order for us to do this, we must allow each other our differences at the same time as we recognize our sameness.
I can't think of a better way to end. That is wonderful. Thank you so much, Sharonda. Thank you to everybody for making the space and time.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
I have a feeling you're going to need to come back a million more times.
Sure.
So, yeah, oh no, we're ready for you. So thank you, everybody. Take care of yourselves and others. We appreciate you. We'll leave the Zoom room open for just another minute or two, so people want to grab things. You might want to stick around and see all the praise and things that are happening in the chat. It's pretty overwhelming.
Thank you.
The hearts and the stuff. Yeah. Sorry we didn't get to all the questions, but thank you again, Sharonda, for making the time.
Absolutely.